this morning we've got Rene Howlett, who she is one of the of the best BEE consultants in South Africa. We're very privileged to have her. She's privileged to live in Port Elizabeth, and she's going to do a short introduction, but also we really want you to post your questions, because last time we had her speaking, she did a presentation, we started a Q&A, and we had to end it. So get your questions ready, get on a piece of paper, put the questions in the chat. But without further ado, let me ask Rene to say hello and do a short presentation, and then we see how it goes from there. Good morning, Rene.
Good morning, John, and all our members. It's really wonderful to see a lovely turnout, so thank you for all engaging. And I hope that this session will be most informative to you. And as John had mentioned, the last session we ran out of time, because I know there's a lot of questions. So I'm not going to take up too much more time. Let me jump into it. Just to give you a bit of background, I have a presentation that I did in the April session. I'm going to skim over some of it because we have covered that, but I've left it in so that when we share it with you, you have that for guidance going forward. So I'm going to share my screen. And yes, please put your questions in the chat box. So let me share my screen. Angelique, if you can just give me a thumbs up when it is sharing.
It's there.
That is perfect.
Okay, great. So you'll see I've just listed the gazettes that we do take into account when that are currently in circulation. So I'm not going to go into too much detail introduction. This I'll just leave for your reading afterwards. I think more importantly is our skills and BE and how they align. So let's look at skills in particular being a priority element. You need to get for generic entities 8 out of the 20 points available, and for a QSE 10 out of the 25. The reason for that is to avoid the discounting principle, which drops a company a level. So you can see why skills development is so important to entities that are doing specifically their BEE. Okay, definitions, there are a couple, and we'll touch on those when we get to the actual nitty-gritty and the questions that you may have for me. So I'm really skimming over. If you would like me to go back onto something, please would you let me know. But I think most important at this stage is to look into the key principles and how BE looks at skills development and what is measured when we are looking at skills development. So plan training beneficiaries in line with EAP targets. So for the generic entities, you need to look at the current EAP target and align accordingly. So it's no good spending your whole allocation of your target on one particular race or gender, because you will never achieve full points. The points are divided as per the current EAP targets in place. It's actually today is the delivery of the next CEE annual report. So we do anticipate that the targets will change, and although slightly, but there will be a change. So please be on the lookout for that. Should I receive it, I will send it on to admin to share with the members. Okay. The BE codes are very specific in that you need to have an approved workplace skills plan and annual training report. So your mandatory grant application has to have been approved. Essential to have implemented training with the SETA's scarce and priority skills. Even if it's one training initiative, you need to show that you have addressed these scarce and critical skills of the industry. Training is for employed and or unemployed. The old codes made specific reference to employed people and then separately to unemployed. Now the codes read training for Black people. However, please be aware, if you don't fall within the general codes, what we call the generic codes, and you fall within a sector, such as construction for industry, for instance, construction codes make specific reference to unemployed. So you need to be aware what sector your client is in when aligning skills to BEE, and ensure that your criteria is in alignment with that particular scorecard. Okay. Training interventions. So you have general training and you have bursaries. They cannot be one and the same. So you can't double count, basically. And then there's absorption. So absorption is recognized as formal, permanent, or long-term contract of employment. Okay. So those are some of the key principles here. And I'll just run over legitimate training expenses that can be claimed when you are claiming on BEE. So it's your cost of the training, and all of the claims must be excluding that. Okay. It's your training material and textbooks, cost of trainers. You can claim a training facility and catering, scholarships and bursaries, accommodation and travel, administration costs such as the skills development facilitator or training manager costs. A lot of companies don't actually realize that you can claim for the skills development facilitator fee. Excuse me. What you cannot claim is mandatory training costs, such as renewal of operator license. Okay, but if you're upskilling somebody that do not have a license, you upskill them to get their license, that first time engagement, yes, you can claim that. I want to just take you through the learning program matrix. This is really important when a client is wanting to categorize their training, because it's measured differently. Oops, sorry, I just skipped a page somehow. There we go. So category A. Now, this is the learning program matrix, which I've taken from the BEE codes, and I've just split it up into the 3 categories. Your first is your bursary. And there you can see, when looking at training, have a look at the learning achievements that are required. Because often the program itself, there's one word, bursary. It might, your entity may have a different terminology. So as long as the learning achievements and the learning site are in alignment, then that would fall within that category of category A training. And a key note for bursaries is students must be registered at educational institutions established by or registered with the Department of Basic Education or the Higher Education and Training. If you're doing a bursary,
Rene,
yes,
Rene,
yes.
I just want to ask a question, because I can do that. Everybody else has got to post these. So the way I read this, if somebody, as long as the provider of the qualification for the bursary is registered with the Department of Higher Education, that will be fine. Now, there are some providers that are not registered through this, they are registered with the DHET, but they are operating in the, let's call it the FET space as opposed to the CHE space. Has the regulation changed? Because I think originally this was defined as people had to go to a university or a private higher education institution accredited by the CHE to fall into this category.
Yes, so then we go back to the learning achievements. So it's recognized theoretical knowledge resulting in achievement of a degree, a diploma, or certificate issued by an accredited or registered formal institution of learning. So this is specific to theoretical courses only. Okay.
Okay, but I think there's a change here, but I don't want to I'll come back to it at the end if there's time.
Okay, sure. We can note that and we can dive into it further.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And then if you're doing a bursary, you need to have a bursary agreement in place, and the obligations you can put in is successful completion and or continued employment for a period following a successful completion. But be careful not to tie in the bursary recipient into more than a period the same duration as the study. So if it's a 3-year course, you cannot tie them into working back for 4 years, for example. Then that will not be recognized when it goes to audit. Okay.
There is, sorry, if I just say, there is one question that's coming specifically related to that. Is it
Yes.
first degrees only? And I think we'll come back to that near the end. No, it's not. Yeah. So
No, it's whichever. Can be the
could
fourth.
Be a bursary for a doctorate, as far as I'm concerned.
Yes. It's not limited.
Okay.
Not
The
limited.
other question is more general. We'll get back to that one just now.
Okay. All right. I'll just run through. I'll try not to take too much time so that we do have more time to engage and go back to the questions in a bit more detail.
I'm going to hold on the questions. If we can work through the presentation and come back. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
So, thank you.
Learning program matrix for categories B, C, and D. This is where you will find majority of the training or your clients doing BE would like to have their spend allocated to categories B, C, and D. The reason behind this is if you have somebody in employment or an unemployed person that comes onto a program, for example, on a workplace-based program, you now are employing them, you can claim their salary or their stipend as part of your training costs. So it's not always an outlay of cash for the target spend. You get a return on investment by having the person working in your entity, and you're getting the that they're working for you on that. So internships, learnerships or apprenticeships into different categories there, as you'll see. Please note that when it comes to learnerships and QCTO, I know the word learnership is falling away, and it's workplace-based learning or workplace experience. As long as, again, look at the learning achievements and make sure that it's theoretical and workplace experience or occupational or professional knowledge and experience. When you can tie back the learning program to the learning achievements and you look into your learning sites, and if you are a training provider offering training, it is a good idea to look into what you're offering and categorize it for your clients up front and say, this is a category, could form part of your category C or category D training interventions on your BE scorecard. Okay. Category E, this is work integrated learning again, and it is credit-bearing courses. So your short courses that are credit-bearing can fall into category E. Your category F is informal training, non-credit-bearing, and category G, your internal workplace learning. Okay. I'm just going to skip over this because I would like more questions. I have got one that was posed on a WhatsApp group earlier. So when an intern is absorbed before the end of an internship program, does it count on the absorption points? So here we need to make reference to the scorecard and not only the definition. And this scorecard is quite specific in that it requires the number of Black people absorbed by the measured entity and industry entity at the end of the internship, apprenticeship, learnership. So take note, it's at the end. So if you're going to absorb somebody during, it's not going to count, unfortunately. the definition of absorption is the ability to successfully secure long-term contract of employment. Okay. We have another one. When we accommodate...
Before you go to that question, can we just come back to the previous question?
Sure.
Because I wanted to add to that question and say, how would you unpack long-term contract in simple terms?
General employment contract, not limiting. So not
okay,
a,
so
not a 6-month
you get a
contract.
letter offer an employment. It doesn't say this is for 1 year. It says you've got a bit of a probation, but after that you're employed. That's a long-term contract.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Sorry.
No problem. Okay. When we accommodate learners who are already funded by another company for workplace, can we include them on our BEE report? Now here, I wasn't sure as to which element of the BEE scorecard this was making reference to. So I've looked at management control. So the entity making payment of remuneration, so the employee cost, would be the entity who can claim them under management control. All right. When you're looking at skills development, if you're accommodating learners or hosting learners, and you provide additional training, whether internal or external, that your company is absorbing the cost of, then that is something you can claim on your entity's BEE scorecard. Okay, except for training in line with Yes for Youth employees. I hope that sufficiently answers the question posed.
So can I just, because I think it's quite an important question. So for example, I'm running a small little business and somebody's looking to place learners because they can't accommodate them all, and they say, well, I take 2 learners. There's no cost to me directly, but the cost of supervising them, providing a workstation, doing other little bits and pieces for them to make sure that they go through a good learning experience, that's all claimable. Is that what you're saying?
As long as it's not a Yes for Youth employee.
Okay, yeah, no, yeah,
Yes.
I saw that, yeah. Okay, cool.
So yes, the training costs involved, because it is time, and time is money. So if you have a supervisor spending, an hour a day, for example, it would be their time at the benefit factor matrix on the scorecard that you can claim towards your skill spend.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Okay.
So I just want to go to questions now. Martine, first question. Is the non-claiming of relicensing on mandatory training only on generic or applicable to sector-specific scorecards, such as transport? I don't know. I don't understand.
Okay, all right. I can see where it's coming from. So mandatory training is you can't claim it on the amended codes. However, the transport sector is the only codes which are not yet amended. So the transport sector is still working off the prior codes, and for transport, you can claim renewable licensing, PDPs, etc. That is dealt with quite separately and differently because they are still on the old codes. I hope that sufficiently answers.
Can I just unpack that a bit more? So for somebody in that sector to get some fancy heavy vehicle license that they have, be it I don't know, but that sector has got a specific scorecard. Are there?
Okay, so what happened in 2015 is there were amended codes, and what followed that were amendments to the sectors like transport, like tourism and finance sector, your construction and agriculture, etc. The only one that did not transform or change was transport. Okay. So the criteria when measuring for the transport industry, you can still claim mandatory training.
Okay, but that would be the employer's choice, I suppose. I mean, obviously, if you want to claim it, there's a benefit of it.
Yes, it's in line with their scorecard, but be aware that there is a draft transport sector amendment, and that could be implemented at any time. So if you're in the transport sector, I would take that quite seriously. I would look at the requirements of the draft amended transport sector and start planning towards it.
Okay, I think that's... Then there was another question, which was back to the bursaries, and we did clarify it wasn't for first degrees only. And I want to come back to that. I said I wanted to come back to that because yes, if if it says the degree, diploma, as your note says there, or certificate, a higher, a further education and training certificate in banking, it's FETC level 5. It's in the other language, it's a CETA or a unit standard based qualification, but it is there are about 160 registered FET providers, DHET registered, offering those level 5 qualifications. So I never understood that bursaries were available for that. Is that really practice, or am I wrong, or I'm misinterpreting here?
Well, it could be, I think one needs to look at a bursary as, is it a short course, for example? Can it be done in a short space of time?
120 credits, full qualification.
Okay.
But it is a national certificate, level 5, as opposed to a degree, which of course we know the degree is level 7.
And if I may ask then, is it theoretical or just theoretical and workplace-based experience that's needed?
Primarily theoretical.
Okay, then yes, I would classify that as a category A.
Okay, I think that's interesting. Organizations like Nedbank or FNB, I'm not sure that. Well, maybe I'm wrong. If there's anybody else there that wants to comment, but up to now, I think generally providers in the FET space, even though they were registered with DHET, didn't think category A applied to them. So I think there's an opportunity here.
Yes, this is direct from the codes as it is written in the codes, the general generic codes. So again, it is often the same when you come to the sectors, because all sectors devise their codes based on the platform which the general codes has implemented. And well, if it falls within the learning achievements, I would say yes.
Okay, so thank you. The other question also about bursaries, I'll just read it. If the bursary has a proviso to pay back to the company if they should not complete or not achieve, can that be included as part of your spend? If the bursary has a proviso to pay back to the company if they should not complete the qualification, can that still be included as part? Yes, sorry, I missed the answer.
Unfortunately not. Your allowable obligations is successful completion within the time period allocated. So I think if you're going to put in your bursary agreement that they must pay it back if they didn't complete or did not achieve, I would... I
think that's more of a study loan than a bursary. I think bursaries, by definition, are gifts to people, whereas companies do issue study loans, which I don't think falls into the same category. But it's interesting.
You can. I mean, if a student is not going to do the work required, and honestly, you don't want to create a platform where you have a lot of what we are now terming professional students, because they just jump from bursary to bursary. So yes, I would say you can have the proviso that they need to pay it back if they did not successfully complete.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to keep going with the questions from our guests rather than me, although I've got a million questions. Andrea asks, given the required workplace component of QCTO qualification delivery, from a BEE point of view, will all QCTO qualifications therefore be a learning program C or D?
Yes, I agree with that. So yes, when you look at your learning achievements again, look at the learning site. If it falls within that, yes. I have had a few questions about what about the learnerships are falling away and what now, because the BE codes make specific reference to learnerships, but that is just a terminology, as I mentioned earlier. Look again to your learning achievements, and I quite agree, yes, it would fall within category C and or D.
Yeah. Let me just say, as an absolute aside here, but I think this is going on, it's certainly going in my head. On the tax side, you know, the SARS issues a specific, it's called Section 12F or whatever, where learnership allowance, you know, there's a tax allowance for learnerships, but the definition is quite clear. But that's not for today, but I'm just letting others know.
That's your 12H and your ETI. Mm.
Yeah, we'll have to get back to the members on that. Okay.
And the other thing to that links with that is the minimum wage. That also refers to learnerships, but there you look at the NQF level. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, we'll whatever you call that, put that on the to-do list. Okay. Then
perfect.
Are entities able to extend internships?
I think a rating agency would question that, because what is an internship and what would be your reason to extend that? An internship, it's if you've got an agreement and that, you know, what are the outcomes of it? Is it measurable? If, for example, you had somebody that was off work for a duration of period, perhaps let's just take maternity leave, for example, I would say that's a valid reason for extension. Yeah, I think a rating agency would scrutinize why you would extend it, because it can be deemed circumventing the BE codes. In that, I mean that you are just prolonging the claim for something that could have been achieved in the time period originally stipulated. So I would be very cautious of that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, my view is that it's really just trying to avoid giving a person a permanent job. But yeah, okay.
Just a quick interruption.
Yes.
For anybody who is only able to be here for half an hour, I am posting the CPD link into the chat box now. You are welcome to stay on for any additional questions that you might ask. We did book the session for an hour, but usually our conversations is only half an hour. So I will be posting the CPD link now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and goodbye to those that have to go. Andrea has asked a question.
Yes.
The QCTO skills programs are not currently registered on the NQF. You know, short courses, I suppose, another way, but I think you understand that we understand the terminology here. Although we understand this will happen at some point, maybe, Andrea, I don't know, that's optimistic. Given this fact, will QCTO skills programs, in other words, programs that are less than 120 credits, because qualification is 120 credits or more, and not be able to be categorized at learning program E for the foreseeable future? So do you understand the question?
Okay, so in short, am I understanding that they are not credit bearing at this stage?
No, they're credit bearing. They
Okay.
are could be 40 credits, 20, well, I don't know,
Okay,
there's a limit.
so
60 credits, but it's less than 120 credits, which is
yes.
the classic definition of a qualification registered on the NQF.
Then I would categorize them on category E because they are credit bearing.
And for those that are not as necessarily informed as everybody in terms of BEE, what makes that important, as opposed to them being a category F or category G?
So you don't necessarily want majority of your training to fall within category F and category G. The reason being that category F and category G is capped at 25% of your total training spend. Okay, so where you have a cap, you don't want to now overspend on that category. So that is why there's an intermediary, which is the category E, credit bearing, which is preferred because they can accumulate credits towards a qualification. So you can see how the developers of the codes, DTIC, has put this together in that promoting credit-bearing training as opposed to everybody just doing informal training because you can rack up points very quickly on that.
Okay, I'm coming back to this. Thank you very much for the clarification. Andrea has made another comment here, and I think it's important for us to think about it. These QCTO skills programs have got credits. They will not be registered on the NQF though. They will be registered on the QCTO website. They will be listed on the QCTO website, and therefore Andrea feels that they cannot be. She uses the word awarded. I'm assuming that means they fall into category E, Andrea. So I suppose the question is here, when verification agencies look at, do they always go back to the NQF and say, what, ultimately it's what is this qualification SAQA number? Because these skills programs that you can register with the QCTO won't have a SAQA number. Will that be a dispute that a verification agent raises?
Okay, so when they're looking at verification, when you're claiming your B, C, and D, they'll look for the training provider's accreditation and the course accreditation, and then, of course, where applicable, registration with the applicable CETA. When it comes to category E, they will look at the course certificate and see if that is credit bearing. They do not necessarily do a deeper dive to see how they are linked to an NQF or what further course they are linked to.
So I hope that helps, Andrea. So this leads me to a more, I suppose, general philosophical question. Given that there are a number, I don't know how many, I call them verification agents, and that might not be the exact term. There are a number of them in South Africa appointed by the BE Commission. Should SDFs be advising their clients or employers to pick verification agents that are more favorable in terms of interpretation of the codes? Oh, yeah, I mean, I don't know. That seems a bit devious, but it's almost like a tax consultant. You try and do the best for your client.
So basically, a rating agent, anybody can open up a rating agency. And it's aligned to SANAS. So SANAS is the accreditation body for the rating agencies, and SANAS visits the rating agencies and does an audit annually, and every third year they do a deep dive, a full audit, which is actually 3 to 4 days on the company. So if you're accredited by SANAS, you can be a rating agency. Okay, the rating agencies during their on-site audit with SANAS receive non-conformances where SANAS assessors don't feel they have addressed or verified correctly. So today, a SANAS assessor may pick up a file that has a particular training initiative in place, and find fault with it and issue a non-conformance. That then goes to the marketplace. For example, registration of a learnership with the CETA. That documentation is missing. When a SANUS assessor went to a different rating agency and did their assessment, that was not picked up at that time because they randomly select files that cover all the elements, not necessarily all the learning programs. So it may not have been picked up in somebody else's file. So that is where discrepancies come in. You say, but I got away with it last year with this rating agency. Now this year they're asking me for something else. It's because of the non-conformances and then industry trying to align together and get the same documentation. So that is why this has occurred like it is. We would like industry to all be on the same page. Unfortunately, it's not. And we are seeing that there are entities that are doing rating agency hopping, we call it, because they want to find the rating agency that is going to accept what they have put in place. However, my advice here is to go back to the codes. If your particular rating agency disagrees with you, and you can fight your case and look at the codes and say, but I am in alignment with, there is an appeals process, and if necessary, get some advice from the BEE commissioner. That is what they are there for. They are for guidance, for advice. It's at no cost, and they are responsive when you engage with them if you encounter a challenge such as a discrepancy in interpretation.
Let me add to that, and then if there are any other questions, but there aren't any yet. But I just want to add to that. I mean, I think a lot of you know I worked at SAQA for, I don't know, 10 plus years. And when the legislation or a regulation was, let's call it, challenged, we looked at the words, and whatever, you know, the paragraph or the sentence said was interpreted as clear as possible. Sometimes we would look at the Afrikaans version to make sure we were understood, and then that was considered law. And I think this is the point of you showing category A to G to us, is ultimately these sentences are the law. And yes, there is always room for interpretation, but ultimately, you know, people should come back and say, well, that's what it said.
Yes.
Therefore, we have to allow it, or no, we can't allow it. As opposed to trying to work the system. Yeah.
And rating agencies will look at substance over form. So sometimes the documentation can be there, but, you know, substance over form is also something that's taken into account. And I think I must just mention as well, with regards to your mandatory grant submissions and going forward, possibly your discretionary grants, the CETAs may request from the entities their BE certificate. Now, the wording valid BE certificate and a compliant BE certificate are very different. Your valid BE certificate can be a non-compliant certificate issued by a SANUS accredited rating agency, and it's got a start date and an expiry date, but it states non-compliant. That is currently what some of the CETAs had asked for. They asked for a valid BE certificate. Be careful if they come out and state they want a valid compliant BE certificate, because then your client would need to have a valid certificate levels 1 to level 8. That is the difference when it comes to your BE certificate.
And that, I think that was a brilliant bit of advice. Thank you very much. I think Rene, and to everybody that's still with us, it's a good point to end. We as skills advisors, our job is to know the law, to know the regulations, and to give the best and most accurate advice possible. And thank you, Rene, for helping us in some cases become more aware that we don't know what we don't know and have to do our homework, and in other cases confirming we do understand some stuff about this.
If I can just add that I did send a request to Association of BE Professionals. I am on their board for the ESD, not their board now, I was on their board, I'm on their technical committee. I have requested clarification notice because, as Andrea correctly pointed out, it is anticipated that the changes now with QCTO, etc., is going to create confusion in the space. And I have asked for recommendations or practice note on how to deal with it. So yes, that has been put forward, and once we receive something, I will share it with the members.
Excellent. Thank you, Rene. And yeah.
It's only a pleasure.
Thank you so much for an excellent session, and to our co-skills practitioners, thank you very much for joining us, and have a wonderful weekend, and chat soon again, everybody.
Thank you,
Goodbye.
everybody. Take care.
Thank
Keep
you.
warm.
Thanks, Rene.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.